Good.
To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to FreshBaked Presents, a happy place where each week we combine imagination and our experience to discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I am Ron Berner, and with me, as always, Mr. FreshBaked himself, the one and only David Erickson.
What's up, FreshBaked?
And this, of course, is the FreshBaked Presents podcast, episode 32. Thanks for joining us, where today we discuss Disneyland Resort President Ken Potrock's State of the Resort presentation. We reach into the mailbag to answer your questions and, of course, our 5 things Disneyland. David, how we doing today?
I'm doing great, Ron. Better than ever. How are you?
Better than ever. I am living the dream still. If you're better than ever, what has been going on in your exciting lives and what has been going on at the parks and your recent stops? All that goodness.
Well, I mean, every day is a journey for me. Every day is a chance to be better than I was the day before. So that's the way I just, it's been a 52-year endeavor to do that exact thing. But yeah, it's been a good time in the parks. I've been really enjoying my time lately. Had a wonderful family weekend. We did a little hosted vacay at at Disneyland this past weekend. Stayed at the Westin. Got to see the parade again, and yeah, no man, I got no complaints. Life's pretty good.
My life is pretty fantastic as well, even though I haven't been in the parks because my son has sporting events and track for kids takes forever.
Yeah, it does.
So that has been an unexpected wrinkle that was thrown into my life. But that being said, it's a different kind of fun, and it's fun all the same. So with that, let's get into the parks and let's talk about, we have been teasing, or not really teasing, we addressed what Ken Potrock teased us with a few weeks ago about this end of April pitch or presentation that he was going to do to some of the community leaders. So he finally did do it, and he had it, and he shared some information on what is coming to the Disneyland Resort. I would say my thoughts were it's less about the Disneyland Resort parks, but more about the Disneyland Resort and all the areas surrounding it. What was your takeaway?
No, you kind of stole my thunder there. That's had nothing to do with Disneyland.
Right.
What the heck? Talking about things that's missed, but we'll get into that. When I first heard, the news that night, I want to say Wednesday night, I think it was that happened. And it was just Downtown Disney stuff. And I'm like, is that the state of Disney? Because that sounds more like the state of Downtown Disney. But still, I mean, it's funny because even though it was just that got a lot of run. Man, people were calling it huge news out there on the socials, and I'm like, Din Tai Fung is huge news, I guess.
I will say that on the film cruise that I worked on, dim sum is what they called it then, rather than just the type of food they have. It is amazing, and everybody loves it and rants and raves about it. That being said, still, it was like, that is not the Disney news that I was anticipating.
No, well, you would think that they were talking about, the People Mover or Tomorrowland or something like that without teasing our later conversation. But, I mean, it was so we got a new skin for Jazz Kitchen, which like 5 people liked. I think so far that I've heard, like nobody likes the Jazz Kitchen thing. You got the Din Tai Fung and Earl Sandwich, gonna pop up Earl Sandwich, and a new skin that everybody saw coming for the Paradise Pier Hotel, it's funny. I was doing the last video I did. I'm pretty sure I called it the Pixar Pier Hotel without even realizing that I was, because I mean, what else were they going to do? I think it was so obvious that this was going to be headed towards, because they turned Paradise Pier into Pixar.
Exactly.
Who didn't see that coming?
No, I think you're spot on with that. I do agree that the changes that took place in Downtown Disney were, well, they call it the Disneyland Resort. He was very ambiguous when he said that,
That's
right?
true,
and then it still counts as Disneyland Resort.
It still counts, yeah.
And I listened to the entire interview, and I remember commenting previously about how I liked him and how I liked his delivery, how he felt like a normal layman.
Oh, Potrock, yeah.
Yeah, and then I listened to his whole entire D23 interview this time, and he was nothing but political. Turned me off in every way.
Really?
As if, and I don't mean that as on a personal note. I mean that like the answers he gave were so like it's almost like he got put in his corner by somebody up above that said, "Okay, you need to speak within. Here's your script on these parameters without giving any information or any details." So it felt like all the answers were so forced, and the conversation was like, because he was like uberly excited, like, "Oh, yeah, we're really excited to bring you this. We have the touch of modern Disney or modern, whatever they call it, modern era, mid-century era,
mid-century modern."
And he was just going crazy. Like, he was uber excited about every sentence that he was saying, which made it feel inauthentic. And not to knock what was there, because the concept art looks good. I do agree with you, but I also don't have any emotional ties whatsoever to Disneyland. So if they change Ralph Brennan's, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. I really don't.
And I look at the image, and I'm like, okay, it looks like a resort almost, but it looks like a beachfront resort almost. Like it has all glass and stuff. It feels more like it belongs in Malibu than it does Downtown Disney, but whatever.
I think people would have felt differently about it if they just hadn't gone pink and orange. I don't understand why they went pink and orange. Like, of all the colors you could pick, fine, take away the wrought iron, take away whatever the guy with the pot and the crawdad and all that stuff. Like, take all that away, fine. Give me a very plain facade and take all that stuff away. But why is it pink and orange? Like, you could have picked any two other colors and it would have been. I think that's really where it is.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely. I don't know what the color pattern was over there. That they veered away from what it was so much. Like, if they're gonna update the modern century look, mid-century look, that's one thing. But they also changed like the entire color. So Ralph Brennan's is known as being this color. Fine, you can change the pattern, but they changed the entire color, and then they're changing the menu. So why even keep it as Ralph Brennan's if it's? I mean, the menu is probably gonna have some elements the same, but they did say that they're adding things to it. They're changing the menu.
Well, the menu is still pretty light, but that's been the case for a lot of restaurants. Cafe Orleans actually I think they just now got their full menu back. Cafe Orleans, another New Orleans situation, but yeah, I think that's more of the menu situation was more kitchen capabilities, staff, that kind of thing. They don't have the cast to service a full menu, I think. But yeah, I just man, the telling point for me on Potrock, to your point about him being more of a, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, more corporate than what we thought, because as we mentioned before, he kind of looks like an everyman. He looks like one of us, less so than others. But for me, the big tell was when they asked him about Tortilla Joe's, and he says, "We love Tortilla Joe's. Tortillas is great. I've got no comment on Tortilla Joe's."
It's so true. He was doing nothing but offering enthusiasm without details.
Right. Like, you could have just you might as well have just said, "Yeah, no, Tortilla Joe's is gone." You guys, you might as well have said that. Like, we have gotten as recipients of this kind of information over the course of decades and decades. We've become more sophisticated in how we're able to interpret. Right, that they still think we're a bunch of dummies. You know what I mean? Right. They still think we're a bunch of dummies. And maybe, I mean, I don't know, because I get excited. I'm still excited about any change that comes this way. But come on,
right? I'm glad you said that, because my instinct is always, I'm excited for it, right? So all of these changes are good. I like these restaurants. One we didn't mention is Guyton's Paseo and Guyton. There's like two, because the Uber
Centrico, Paseo and Centrico.
Paseo and Centrico, and I like that. I'm all for it. But also, to your point with Tortilla Joe's, are they going to have all these right next to each other? Two Mexican options right next to each other? No. So Tortilla Joe's it's dead man walking. It's on the plank for sure.
Come on.
Right, I totally agree. But to that point, all these elements that they're bringing in, they wanted it. How did he word it? They wanted it to be more cultural. I'm for it. I'm for what they're bringing, and I'm excited for the changes. But that being said, it's still it's not Disney. It's so like none of these elements are Disney whatsoever. They're just trying to give you more offerings.
I'm fine with that, though. I'm really fine with it. I know a lot of people aren't, and like you said, I'm not emotionally connected to Downtown Disney. I guess some people are, but I'm not. I never liked Downtown Disney very much to begin with. I only started liking Downtown Disney post-COVID. Because that was all we had for about a year, and I fell in love with it a little bit. But I'm certainly ready. I'm certainly ready for some sort of change there. So it doesn't bother me one bit that they're changing the Jazz Kitchen or Tortilla Joe's or anything else. I mean I would like it to look better. I wish they had a plan B for Jazz Kitchen. I hope they have a plan B because it's just me saying I like this versus that. But even if they went with the Jazz Kitchen, I'm still gonna be okay with it. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have that emotional attachment to Downtown Disney. I love Downtown Disney in terms of the energy of just like walking through it. I enjoy going to the park through Downtown Disney just to see it, right? Because if I take the trams, then nothing will get me to Downtown Disney. So it gives me the opportunity to see the changes and to see the things that are happening out there. The only emotional attachment I could say that I have is Salt and Straw, because we go every month. We go to get the new flavors. But the changes that they're making, I like. It's different than before when they had like the Pele shop and the other things that were kind of so obscure. I'm like, really? That just seems peculiar to me. But these type of changes look good, and we'll see Brennan's because it's closer to the park, the Esplanade.
Speaking of which, can you explain why we have the Pele shop?
I don't get it at all. Like, it doesn't make
sense.
Who
had that? Who asked for the Pele shop? Was there a demand?
I guess talk about the cultural changes that they're trying to make, because I don't know. It just threw it. I would have bet good money. I would have laughed at somebody if they told me, imagine if they put in a Pele shop. I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's no chance that's going to happen. So I don't know how to even comment on it.
I don't either. I mean, no offense or anything, because I know soccer is a very popular sport, and I would love to. I wish I was a bigger fan of soccer, but I'm not. I'm just not.
Even sports gear in general. Just say it's instead of being one sport.
If it was an MLB shop,
right? Like or every sport. It was just a flat out like sports store. I don't know. It just doesn't strike me as something that I would have thought would be a tenant at Downtown Disney. But what do I know?
There's a Dodger store at Universal, at the what do we call it? The Universal Downtown Disney. I forget what they call it all of a sudden. And I walked by that Dodger store and I'm like, what?
Well, that's because they have Dodger dogs.
Do they really at the store?
Well, not at the store, but I know that they were selling Dodger dogs at I used to work at City Walk.
Yeah, Universal City Walk. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, they have a Dodger store at City Walk. I went in once, and it literally is 100% Dodgers.
That's hilarious. Well, we would be angels here.
Yeah, right. I know that there's a lot of Dodger fans out there, but really, if you're a Dodger fan, are you going to the Dodger store to buy your Dodger gear? Question mark. I don't know.
You don't need to. Well, not only that, but you don't need to go to Downtown Disney to get your Dodger gear. No. Like it's everywhere else. Yeah. That is interesting. So anyway, let's get the heck out of that world. How about so you mentioned the Paradise Pier Hotel, which is the Pixar. Well, for lack of a better name, the Pixar. The changes that are coming to it. Again, I've never stepped foot inside. I've never been inside any hotel except for the Disneyland Hotel for something I've been to, but the changes that are coming for that, it's cool in the fact that they can change the path that they can get you into the park.
That's cool.
The amenities for the early entry coming back, which we knew would come back,
needed to be done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the element of the design that is cool in theory is whatever it means how they're going to have, I forget how they worded it, but you're going to be able to like splash in and out of Pixar things all the time. I don't know if it means digital screen. You know what I mean? How they can convert it.
You mean in the hotel?
Yeah.
I have to. Did he say that in the podcast?
They called that.
I may have skipped that part.
Well, they had touched on it, how the elements are replaceable or not even replaceable can be added. So in other words, they can retheme it to a Pixar specific thing, essentially with a push of a button, which makes me think it has some sort of digital elements in there.
Yeah, that's digital.
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me, even though I have several pages of that type of stuff. Also, the Hey Disney. Any thoughts on the Hey Disney? You can talk about that while I find it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use Hey Alexa myself. I've never really, it's never been a part of my life, so I don't know how cool that is, to be honest. I mean, it does sound cool. I think it would be easier to just say, "Hey Disney, can I have some towels?" rather than calling getting on the phone and going through that whole rigmarole. Just having a what do you call it? Just giving an order and having it answered. I think that's modern times, right? Like, you don't want to have a conversation with somebody and go through all that. You just want to be able to say, "I would like a cheeseburger and a Coke," have it sent to my room, and then it comes to your room. That's cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And I guess that's that's something. I don't know if that's, man, when I tell you I'm not with the times, Ronnie, I don't know what is advanced these days. I don't know. Like, even my car is not advanced. I don't have an advanced phone. I don't have advanced anything. Like, I'm never at the front of the line when it comes to technology. I'm not an early adopter. Maybe I should be, but so I don't know how forward that is. Like, are hotels doing that now anywhere?
I don't know. The Galactic Star Cruiser played with it, but I don't know.
Did they?
They did. They had some sort of Alexa there. They didn't call. I don't think they called it Hey Disney there, but it was essentially where I remember you could talk to it to get sort of like these clues where it was downloading information about you. I forget what they called it, but that was kind of the first beta of them utilizing this type of a system. The theming for the hotel, I found what I had read previously. Theming for the hotel will be designed in modular form, allowing Imagineers to swap IP in and out as new franchises come to the screen. Potrock did not provide a timeline for the hotel renovations or other downtown additions. So,
okay. I mean, most likely that's digital, but God, I hope not.
Modular.
Well, why does that infuriate me so much? I don't know why.
I don't know. I feel like it makes sense from a standpoint of doing things that are easy. Well, anything that's digital, you don't like.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why. Am I such an old get off my lawn kind of guy? Like, I don't. Is that what it is? I don't know.
I don't know. Practical is better, but
it's better. It's just better.
They don't have the flexibility with it, so I suppose they want to maximize. Like, when their next Encanto comes, they can just automatically just zip that sucker into the hotel without having to take down practicals.
Okay, but meanwhile, it's still Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's not like they're calling it the Encanto Castle. I mean, it's okay if you have a 60-year-old IP in your park. It's okay.
100%. 100%. Okay. I only brought it up. It was without opinion. It was just that when I read it, it stuck out in my mind. I was like, okay, that's interesting, because everything's ambiguous. Even the concept art, all it shows is like the Pixar ball and Luxo. So it's like, and then they went on to talk about what I had just mentioned about the modular, so they can switch it in and out. Yeah. So I don't know what that means. I just know that I came across it.
That just does not interest me at all. But what interests me is seeing a hotel like the one in Tokyo, the Toy Story Hotel in Tokyo.
Yeah.
Everything.
I find the other parks, some of the things, especially the Asian parks, some of the stuff they do is insane.
I know. And it's like, what's holding them back? What are they afraid of? Because that's what it sounds like. To me, it's fear. It's a fear of making a mistake. So they choose the lowest hanging fruit, the lowest common denominator. That's why they lean on IP so much. They're afraid to make a mistake. But dang, if you're not afraid to make a mistake, look at what you get. You can get something beautiful like Tokyo Disney Sea, or or the Toy Story Hotel, which is just phenomenal.
The IP thing is just straight cash cow. That's why every possible nuance they can capitalize on IP through more than just a hotel. They have all the merchandising, they have all the TV shows, all the levels of branching. Right, but it doesn't
have to be the newest IP. I mean,
right.
Fine, make it IP based, but I mean, what's wrong with Mickey Mouse? You know what I mean?
Agreed. He's finally just getting his first ride, so that takes us to the next point. That takes us to the next point of Toontown. He said next to nothing about Toontown.
No, he didn't. As a matter of fact, he didn't say anything about Toontown.
He didn't say anything about Toontown except for how excited he was for it, and
he did say that the Runaway Railway was going to have some extra features.
He said it would have some extra features. Yeah. And he was thinking about all the elements that they wanted kids and families to be able to do, like the picnic.
Yeah, the interactivity. It's funny. He talked about wouldn't it be cool if they could have a picnic in Toontown? Like, that's the thing that people are wanting. And I'm thinking, Ken, honestly, nobody has ever asked to have a picnic at Disneyland. Nobody has ever asked that.
I'm still on the skeptical side of all of this stuff where they talk about that. Nobody's going to lay on a lawn and relax. It's just not going to happen. I just don't get it. And they keep trying to sell me this, and I'm not going there. I refuse. Like, people don't go to theme parks for that. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that they don't need their places to go relax and to get out of the sun. And those places are absolutely necessary, and they do happen. I just don't know that going to the farthest corner of the park and I don't know. It just
that's what makes it hard for us to like sort of decode, because on the one hand, I am absolutely all for them putting a big old tree and a whole bunch of fake grass in that town. I'm absolutely for it. I love the idea of Toontown getting this. But when you tell me it's so that people can picnic, what are you really like, you're not telling me the truth. I don't know what you want. Like, that doesn't sound right. I don't want a picnic at Toontown. I want the grass. I want the tree, but I don't know what you're doing.
I agree. So to that point, there's some numerous other things. So those are the kind of the things that he touched on and he mentioned. There was so many things that we wanted to hear, or I wanted to hear. I guess I shouldn't speak for other people, but we wanted to hear other things, and some of those things. So the Downtown Disney mid-century modern. Mid-century modern. The look of that is interesting in that the monorail goes from there to Tomorrowland, and he did not mention Tomorrowland. Do you think? Because I think this, but based on looking at the pictures, do you think that they're going to match that in Tomorrowland? Or
I think
at least where the monorail is.
When they first announced this at the Destination D thing, like what was that, 6 months ago or whatever, when they gave us that first concept art, that's a connection I made right away. I said this looks a lot like what they were proposing for Tomorrowland and the entrance and what they had already done at Buzz Lightyear and Star Tours, right? Yep. Restoring that vintage facade from the 60s. I said, that looks really similar. That looks, I mean, like the same sort of aesthetic. So and part of me is saying that because I want it to be true. Not that I believe it could be, but I think that we got a video coming out later this week that I did in Tomorrowland talking about why we want a new Tomorrowland. And a lot of it has to do with the things that we miss. And a lot of the things that they've taken away. And you think about all the best stuff that we don't have in the park anymore. I mean, just name me 3 or 4 things right now that you miss that aren't in the park. And 3 or 4 of those are going to be in Tomorrowland. So I think we want him. We want them to say something about Tomorrowland. And I don't believe that. No, I don't believe it's not an accident that he didn't say anything, because I don't think we're getting a comment on Tomorrowland.
I agree. That's probably true as well, because it's all strategic. How they're going to give us information when it's appropriate for there to be new buzz created and generated. Mm-hmm. And right now there's a lot going on. I do think it's likely. Well, I don't know if likely is the right word. I think it's highly possible that they would match that, simply because you're getting on the monorail station, and then if nothing else, that area of Tomorrowland, the monorail station at Tomorrowland, it just makes sense because it's the same exact look. So I guess it doesn't have to, but it seems to me that it would be a good choice to do that. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, and again, this is the point I made in the Downtown Disney video, that if the problem that you're having is that you can't, if the theme you're picking doesn't stay culturally relevant over time, the theme that they picked for Tomorrowland did not hold up, the theme that they picked for Downtown Disney did not hold up, then you pick a theme that already has held up. You pick a theme, you pick a design aesthetic that has already stood up to time, i.e. the mid-century modern. You don't have to worry about that going out of style. You don't have to worry about mid-century modern going out of style. It's because it's been in style for 50 years,
Or retro.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're worried, and that's what people worry about Tomorrowland. Oh, you can't keep up. It's Yesterland, whatever. Well, then don't even try. Even try. pick a theme, pick an era that worked, i.e. the 60s and, all that, where, I mean, the peak Tomorrowland was 50 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. There are elements, so I have a whole list of things. What are some things that you were hoping to hear that you did not hear, or things that he didn't touch on at all that are obviously still out there, unanswered questions that exist? We've touched on all of these before, but there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Tomorrowland would have been something. I would have liked to have heard something about Magic Happens. I would have liked to have heard something about any kind of daytime parade, but I get why they're not. I mean, I know Magic Happens is coming back, so I don't know if I need him to say it. The timing is just bad. It's been bad, and there's a lot of reasons why that hasn't happened. But when the timing is right, they'll announce it, and especially when they need to do a punch and tickle. They got bad news for us at some point. Maybe the investor call is coming up in about a couple of weeks. So
it's coming up next. Matter of fact, that's next Wednesday, which is we dropped the show next Wednesday, but it's going to drop the same day as the call, which is just going to throw us all off because we won't be able to talk about it for a week.
By the way, I think we're going to hear good news. I think.
Oh,
I'm
convinced.
Hear good news from an investor call.
I said it all along because it's once again strategic. They are absolutely going to have big numbers throughout the year,
and that's why we
don't have. It's going to be a good full year because they haven't. Well, think about it. Galactic Star Cruisers, all that money is hitting.
They made a ton of money last quarter.
Yeah, they're doing just fine. Well, not only that, a couple other things Potrock said. 30,000 cast members are back.
Yeah,
which is a lot. Which is basically the numbers that they were previously at 28,000. So 30,000. Another interesting comment that I wrote down in red. His words verbatim. The state is telling us we have to manage capacity. It's words that came out of his mouth. I don't know what that means, and I'm not going to read too much into it, but he did say when he was talking about crowd control, like, why did it take a year? The question was, why did it take a year for Nighttime Spectaculars to return? In his answer, crowd control, which part of it was by design. It takes a lot of people, which is cast members, and numerous creative and operational roles, which is true. We know that. And then he also said it's part of their strategy, manage the park capacity and bring things back at the right time and in the right window. He also said the state was also telling us we have to manage capacity.
I don't know. You don't hear that conversation coming out of Knott's or Universal. We didn't hear anything like that, even though they're not as popular, but I mean, they have their own limits too, and they weren't worried about their limits at all. Knott's, I've been to Knott's, and Knott's is full. That's a busy park, and you didn't hear any of those conversations coming out of Knott's. They just said, "Come on in." Months ago they said, "Come on in."
Right.
So I mean, that could be. I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the room, but I'm less inclined to believe that. I'm more inclined to believe it's cast, and that's still a problem. Cast is still going to be a problem. They're still losing cast. And having a hard time replacing them. 10,000 new cast. 10,000.
Yeah, that's definitely, there's a learning curve that goes there for sure, where they have to, and also to make them more interchangeable, meaning able to do multiple things when needed. There was things that he didn't touch on for sure that this was for community leaders, so I guess it would be unrealistic in some ways to get him to respond and comment on the reservations or the magic key passes, the magic bands, or other things within the park.
I would have loved to hear something besides. Well, I would have loved to have heard something about reservations, but actually he did, to the extent that he says, "No, they're still here. Reservations are not going anywhere."
Right. I'm thoroughly convinced reservations are not going anywhere. Yeah. But my argument is, do not tell a certain tier that they cannot go.
Yeah.
Fine. Keep reservations so you can count us. It's turnstiles without a limit is what I'm saying. Yeah. The Wild Wild West with reservations, and I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And the other things like the big things I should say that have been touched on. So D23 or not D23, supposedly rumors out there that we may hear something about Tomorrowland. Another thing is Lin-Manuel continues to not stop talking about conversations he's had with Imagineers, and he is now saying that, Imagineers are thinking and working on an attraction, possibly. What that means, we don't know.
Both of those stories are dubious at best.
I think Encanto Land. And is happening 1,000,000%.
Well, right, but he was talking about a ride, that they were developing a ride.
Oh, for sure.
Or working on it. But I mean, that could mean working on it does not mean building it, for one thing. They could spitball any number of things. So I'm not. I mean, sure, I would be surprised if they weren't working on an Encanto ride. But they're also working on many other things too, I'm sure. But the Tomorrowland rumor, I don't know why that got. Mice Chat posted the thing the other day, but they were just kind of rehashing a thought that we were going to get it in 2019, and they're saying we're expecting a Tomorrowland announcement, but somehow that got conflated with it being fact, or rumor. It's not even a rumor; it was a guess. They're expecting. I don't think because they didn't say. Normally, if it were a rumor, they would say our sources are telling us or we've heard. They didn't say those things. They just said we're expecting, based on their 2019. And then Disneyland News Today ran with that. They felt it drives me nuts. The echo chamber, the internet echo chamber is crazy sometimes. So I am not expecting any news out of D23 regarding Tomorrowland.
Well, if they do say something, it's going to be years down the road for it to happen. Like they might be talking about what they're thinking of. You know what I mean? They might mention it, but whatever they mention isn't going to come in. Which that wouldn't make even sense to mention it actually. Then.
Well, think about this. I don't know. We got that concept art for that new entrance to Tomorrowland, right? Was that D23? The entrance, yeah. Was that D23 or was that some other situation?
I don't recall actually. That was years ago now.
It was yeah. God, I can't remember now. But I bring that up if only to illustrate that those blue walls are still up. The part of that they haven't. The grass is still there. Oh, that was supposed to be that colorful swirly mosaic thing. We didn't get that. So they're not close to doing anything in Tomorrowland. They're not. Well, that's stopped.
Well, not for sure, and it goes back to what we've said repeatedly: is they're not going to do Tomorrowland simultaneously to doing Toontown, or simultaneously doing Splash Mountain, or the Backlot, or anything. Those things will not
first. Backlot's happening first. Well, first Toontown, and then the Backlot, and then Tomorrowland, and maybe even Fantasyland in between the Backlot and Tomorrowland. Maybe Tomorrowland, I think it's at best third and maybe fourth in line, in my opinion. And that's the way it's always been for years. It's been that way.
That's true. I hope it's not I hope the Backlot does not become more Avengers. I'm not on board with that because they already know where they're
popping,
going.
Ron.
No, it isn't.
It is
fake news.
Okay, they filled a whole building with Avengers merchandise, and if you've been into the Star Trader recently,
shop in Downtown Disney.
Have you been to the Star Trader in Tomorrowland recently?
Yeah.
That used to be 100% wall-to-wall Star Wars. It is now 50% Marvel. Star Trader is.
That doesn't mean it's popping. They can do whatever.
It means that they want that merch in there instead of Star Wars. I
don't see that way at all. Because here's the thing. The only point I'm trying to make with the Backlot is that means half the park's going to be Marvel. It just doesn't make sense. They already know they're going the other direction with the e-ticket, supposedly. I don't know.
That's true, yeah.
I'm going to wait. Let's put it this way. Without having like a strong opinion of it necessarily, I'm in wait and see mode because it doesn't seem like the Backlot is huge. And yes, there's a lot of wasted area. But if that becomes Marvel's going to be as big as, it's going to be bigger than any other land.
Yeah. It would be an enormous land for sure.
And I'm not sold on that just yet.
Let me put it to you with one more frame before we move on, because I have a feeling we're supposed to be getting into this week in history. But
I don't know. I don't pay attention anymore.
What movies are people going to see right now? What movies are actually earning money in the box office?
Yeah, but that's Marvel, of course.
Yeah, superhero movies.
Well, no, Marvel.
Well, yeah, it's true. It's just Marvel, really, when you talk about it. But nothing else is making money. You know what I mean? Like, so they're gonna lean into Marvel. They're gonna lean into Marvel, I think.
I mean, this is it's semantical. Yes, of course they're gonna go into Marvel. They also don't need to turn an entire park into Marvel. It's still Marvel movies are made for the theater, for that experience. This is what I always talk about. It's an event. It's an experience that you cannot get in your living room. Period. End of story. You get it, that crowd energy. Yeah. I always say catching Mjolnir. That when people scream and lose their mind is not happening.
One of the greatest moments in cinematic history is when that happened.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why those things work in the theater, and they're also shot in a theater. The cameras, everything about that production is the theater. That being said, I don't know that. I mean, if there's a new Star Wars movie, that's going to do huge as well. Even though they're on a. Yeah, I mean, this is like the conflating things, like saying Pirates 5 was a flop of the Pirates series that still made $800 million. So don't tell me.
No doubt about it. Yeah, people get the movies sucked, but they made a ton of dough. They were going to make another one for sure.
Did it make less than the other Pirates? Yes, it made $800 million. I'm not willing to have a conversation about Pirates 5 being a flop because it made $800 million. Like, but to your point, yeah, we'll see. And by the way, fine, put Marvel in there. Do something to the backlot. Let's do it. Let's go. We're wasting space right now, so literally anything they do is going to be a massive improvement.
I have said before, I would prefer a blank canvas to what's there right now. I would prefer dirt to what they're trying to, because at least that suggests potential. And what we have now is just sad and depressing.
It is sad. It is sad and depressing. All right, David. Well, with that was a meaty bone that.
Yeah, it was.
It felt like it was a meaty bone that there was like. Remember the "Where's the Beef" commercial? Like,
oh my God, remember her?
Remember her? What was that? Wendy's or I don't even remember. I think it was Wendy's.
No, it was Wendy's. Yeah.
Much to talk about, and he just trickled some information in. But to your point, but it was like there's a lot of meat on that bone, but he didn't discuss any of that meat. It was, you know what I mean? It was like so much. Next Wednesday is the earnings call, which I mean that's just exciting things are going to happen because they have to be quarter over quarter profits, right? So what are we going to see? What's the next sizzle thing? Is it right? And what? Not going to tell us anything except for what they made up until this point, and then it opens a fun speculation to how they're going to make their money. So the new form is it the new Magic Key passes stuff? It's not going to happen that soon, but those days are coming as well. So anyway, this week in Disney history, David, as always, what opened this week? And here is two fun-filled things that open with trivia galore. The Donald Duck film Donald Gets Drafted opens. As the theme song of the short goes, the Army's not the Army anymore. This is particularly true when Donald Fauntleroy Duck, the name provided on his draft card, gets drafted. This was in 1942. This week, the happy-go-lucky duck, obviously proud to serve his country, enthusiastically heads off to the draft board amidst posters depicting how great Army life is. The theme song lyrics describing the cushy conditions of Army life. Donald quickly becomes disillusioned when he's faced with perhaps World War II's toughest drill sergeant, the villainous Black Pete. Donald Gets Drafted is historic because it is the first Disney war-themed cartoon released during the Second World War. I have seen that years ago.
I don't remember it.
I barely remember it. I had seen it. I don't watch any of those packaged films, actually. I've seen Make My Music and stuff like that, but nothing. You?
No, I mean, I may have seen it, but I couldn't say for sure, but I might have. I mean, I've seen a lot of those old films, but I don't know which ones I have or haven't seen.
I know, it's so true. The Mickey Mouse film The Moose Hunt opened this week in 1931. Though the Moose Hunt has very little dialogue, it is the dialogue that makes it so important to Disney history. After Mickey thinks he accidentally shot his canine companion, he cries out through his tears the name Pluto for the very first time. Unaware that his pal Pluto is playing dead, Mickey learns it's a hoax when Pluto looks up with a big smile and actually says the words, "Kiss me," speaking for the first and only time in his career. Although the Moose Hunt was released 91 years ago now, it continues to bring smiles to all of our faces at Disneyland in the Main Street Cinema.
That's right.
That is right. Trivia that I probably knew but forgot until I reread it.
What, that it plays at the Main Street?
No. I go in there a lot, actually.
Oh, that he speaks.
That was the first and only time that he speaks, and that was when Pluto got his name.
Yeah. You
never know because there's usually comics and this, unless you actually know the trivia, and then of course we forget it because we read all this stuff and forget it. But there were comics and there were other things that predated a lot of the shorts, and they already had a name and you didn't know it, or you did know it. This week in 1957, Walt officially opens the interior of the castle as a walk-through attraction featuring dioramas telling the Sleeping Beauty's story, with Shirley Temple making the dedication. Jack Lindquist, Disneyland's first advertising manager, who later became Disneyland's first president, recalls, "I had the chance to write the speech for Walt. I've heard from most everybody that Walt will change everything. So I was waiting for it to come back to me. I never heard a thing. Walt came down the day of the dedication, and I met him over at City Hall about an hour before the dedication. And he took the speech out of his vest pocket and said, 'Who wrote this?' So I said, 'I did.' He said, 'Oh.' And he didn't say another word. Put it back in his pocket, went to the opening, and he read it, and he didn't change one word. So, of course, I was very pleased and proud of that."
Oh, cool.
Yeah, super cool. I love how Walt historically, they always say he doesn't really compliment anybody. He says things like, "That'll do," or "That'll work." Things like that. He just, it's so funny. He's so demanding. Everybody likes him, but also he just was hard-pressed to tell somebody they did a good job.
Yeah.
He did it in Walt's way. The Pendleton Woolen Mills Dry Goods Store. Heard of that? The Pendleton Woolen Mills Dry Goods Store closed this week in 1990. The shop's massive storefront stood between the Golden Horseshoe and the Frontier Arcade. Today, the storefronts in Frontierland Square connect into a larger gift shop, which is Bonanza Outfitters. The Pendleton shop, often called the Dry Goods Emporium, was the largest sponsored shop in Disneyland on opening day. Sponsored by Pendleton, the shop sold a huge selection of leather and wool goods. Walt and his team, as savvy as they are, businessmen, quickly recognized an opportunity to replace sponsored shops in each land with merchandise more closely themed toward Disney characters and films. As sponsorships ended, Disney regularly opted not to renew to swap out partner goods for Disney merchandise. By 1990, the Pendleton's partnership dissolved amicably, and Disney swapped out the leather and wool for Western Disney merchandise. Disney and Pendleton maintain a relationship to this day. Pendleton goods can still be found in Bonanza Outfitters and in Ramon's House of Body Art in Cars Land.
Yeah.
How on earth would you know that?
I've seen it. I've seen the Pendleton. I remember, specifically Ramones. I remember seeing, oh my God, that's a Pendleton shirt in Ramones. I remember I did a video on it, as a matter of fact.
I wouldn't know the first thing about Pendleton.
They're like heavy flannel kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a plaid for sure. Yeah. I know that. I left that element out. Known for a plaid pattern, is what it said. 1991, while working with Jim Henson on the production, Jim Henson's Muppet 3D Vision, Disney announced an agreement with Henson to acquire the merchandise licensing and publishing rights to the Muppets in 1989. However, estate tax problems encountered by Henson's heirs after his unexpected passing in May of 1990 caused them to end that deal in that September. But here in 91, Disney and Henson Associates announced an agreement for Disney to use certain Muppet characters. Disney would pay an 18-month license for 2 movies and 3 years for characters in Disney World. Finally, in April of 2004, Disney was able to complete an acquisition of the Muppet properties and Bear in the Big Blue House. I have never heard of that. Have you? What is Bear in the Big Blue House?
Never heard of it. That's completely foreign to me.
And me too. I don't know what it is. Should have did more research in This Week in Disney research. And the last thing, which is fun, The Anaheim Bulletin newspaper reports news of the Disney purchase of land in Anaheim for the amusement park that would now be called Disneyland. When Walt was searching for a location, he hired the Stanford Research Institute to do the survey for him, and their preferred location turned out to be Anaheim. So, Walt's agents negotiated on the purchase of a parcel of land where Harbor Boulevard intersects the Santa Ana Freeway. And it was there that he built Disneyland in 1955, of course. The success of Disneyland acted as a catalyst for the major growth of the city of Anaheim that took place over the ensuing decades. Did you know that, David?
Which part?
I'm just joking. Of course you knew that.
I was going to say.
The Anaheim Bulletin newspaper, is that still a thing in your neck of the woods?
Is a newspaper still a thing? I think I saw my dad read a newspaper the other day. It shook my world. I didn't know people still read newspapers.
I do prefer the hard copy of... I'm getting better at reading the digital, and I'm getting better at using a digital calendar, or a script when I worked in the film industry. I just want the hard
Do you still
copies.
have a Franklin Covey?
No, I don't know what that is. Is that a
Franklin
Thomas guide?
No, Franklin Covey Day Planner.
Oh, I like to print out. I like to write my workouts on paper and look at the paper so I know when I'm having a bad day or a good day. I like the paper. The digital all bleeds together. So appointments go digitally, but like things, I don't know. I just like the paper. I don't know. I'm a weirdo, David. I'm a weirdo.
No, me too.
And reading. I have books on the digital format. I
Still can't do that.
The book. I do. Yeah, I struggle, man. I struggle. I have lots of books. In fact, I have books in both. I have books in audio, actual book, and digital. Same book. That's how stupid I am. But with my stupidity, that brings us to Mailbag.
All right.
To put it on full display with these answers. So, mail time, David. Thank everybody for your questions, and I will say it right now. The cupboard is getting bare because I've neglected to reach out to you, so how would you respond to me? So please fire away with all sorts of questions and top fives, and I will anxiously await for them. Until then, the first question from Ryan Prieto. What in-depth tell-all documentary would you like to see made about the parks?
Well, I mean, there's 100 things I probably wouldn't mind knowing more about, but a certain event came to mind specifically that I'd be really curious about, and I know this is going to be kind of a deep cut, but I would like to have been in the room. I want to know the true story of where and how it was decided to turn the Main Street Cinema into a gift shop. I want to know how they came to that decision, because it would tell me so much about what the true mindset is of the Disney company, what they're really like. What do they really want? You know, are they trying to entertain us, or are they trying to sell us merch? I mean, the answer is obvious, of course, but I want to hear the people in the room say the words. I think we could sell product in the Main Street Cinema. I want that to be on the record.
Yeah, that's interesting. This is definitely one of those. I always say that documentaries, I love documentaries, and I watch them over and over and over again. But the problem with a documentary is you can tell any story that you want to tell.
Right, that's
so
true.
There's always an opposite side.
Yeah.
But when I saw this question, I couldn't. Everything under the sun would make sense to me because there's a finite way things happen that we're unaware of. So you could talk about even like an Imagineering doing an attraction or whatever. So they're all fantastic, but all I could think of that I would be really fascinated to understand is a cast member related. So like any portion of this, right? So like the night crew, what they do at night, the groundskeepers, the custodians, gardeners, the engineers. Like one thing I saw on TechCrunch years ago when they were doing Galaxy's Edge, TechCrunch had this huge article, and they were discussing how to strategically through the software how to stage to build Galaxy's Edge. So they knew where each piece of merchandise, so they could move the backhoes and the cranes, so they could navigate them through the land while building it. So there was a strategic element of how they built it. So things like that across the board on a documentary of how they did Galaxy's Edge or any land, or even like I think of the custodians or the groundskeepers. I don't know what you would call them, but because there's a different person for the gardeners that deal with the flowers and deal with everything else. But whatever the inner workings of the science behind what it is they do and what their goals and tasks are would be fascinating. And any element that is, how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I love all that kind of stuff. Like you name it. There's another one of those questions where you could have literally said anything, and I would be like, I'm down. I would love to watch that.
Yeah, more the better.
Right. David, has there ever been a moment at Disneyland where you cried or just got misty-eyed? This comes from the girly nerd.
Well, yeah, it's on video. April 27th, 2021, cast member preview of opening day of Disneyland, walking down Main Street. I cried. I literally cried. First day back in over a year. I mean, that was the most openly, kind of weepy I've ever been. But I get emotional. I'm kind of a blubbering mess sometimes, at least on the inside. I get emotional very often where I get choked up. But that was probably the most, overt that I've ever been that day.
Yeah, I can't see that ever happening to me. I put nope.
Nope.
But, well, here's the thing. It's funny that you say it because it's a really good way of putting it. I am a very emotional person. I'm very soft in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But the actual cry, no. I can say this. I've often said this. Sporting events like Hall of Fame speeches and just speeches where people, if they get drafted, when they talk about where they came from and where they got, that gets my eye. I'm not gonna cry, but it hits me. I'm like, oh, that's so touching. So to answer this question, I've had emotional. I do remember seeing the Millennium Falcon and just being like, whoa, this is so powerful. The first time I saw it, I didn't cry, but it definitely had an emotional response. And I think of my son, giving him the childhood, or trying to give the memories that I had as a child. So when I first took him, he was 5 years old, and I was just him and I just going through it. That was emotional. I didn't cry, but it definitely emotionally touched me and emotionally hit me. So there's a lot of that happens at Disneyland, I can say.
For sure, yeah.
And I guess we're changing gears and going from those things to, which I didn't do intentionally, but also Ryan Prieto. That just shows you how low we are on questions. And this guy got two. And so thank you. What are your Disneyland pet peeves, David?
Well, I mean, there's the usual kids on shoulders during shows. That's a big no-no for me. Guests berating or treating cast members rudely. That really bothers me. But one specific one that I have that I don't hear a lot of from others that I thought I'd mention is I want guests to be a little bit more aware of what I prefer if they didn't walk more than 3 shoulders wide. Like if you're in a group, you need to be like a bantha and go a little single file for me down Main Street or wherever you're at, especially in choke points, because when they start getting 3 or 4 shoulders wide and they're not moving at a pace, if you're just kind of meandering, boy, that because a lot of us are trying to get somewhere, and so I would prefer it if you could maybe 2 or 3 at the most 3, but just try to do a little more single file if you could.
That's a great one. 3 is aggressive. 2 is 3 is aggressive. The pet peeve thing. It's funny because I put inappropriate T-shirts, kids on parents' shoulders. Kids on parents' shoulders, and just in general, for a overall thing, because nothing really bothers me. I just do my thing, and I don't let other people affect me if I can help it. But rude people or those lacking tact, and to your point right there, standing in a crunch area or being 3 wide, just the common sense tact, being aware. Yeah, be mindful of. And I think about that, and I talk to my son all the time. If I walk ahead of you, You don't need to hurry up and catch up to me and cut somebody off on pushing a stroller or whatever. Like common sense. Like don't like I try to help him with that kind of stuff. So of course when we see it and then I just look at him and I go, I know, buddy, it's okay. Like when it happens to him, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But just overall, like you said, be aware. Just don't. Be mindful.
Try at least. Try. I know it's hard. We can't see everything all at once, but at least try.
I definitely agree, and I'm glad to say that I don't have tons of pet peeves because I just I avoid it. If something's bothersome, I just go immediately, just forget it and go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. That's mail time, and David, right. 5 things Disneyland. I know you nailed this. I did not.
This was easy. 5. I did this list in like 3 minutes.
I just feel like the question is 5 things Disneyland. Top 5 Disneyland Resort sounds. This comes from Scott Taylor. Thank you for the question. And I struggled because I feel like every single thing that you say, I'm going to say, yep, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Then everything, there's not 5. There's just like everything's awesome. So what is your number 5?
Number 5, I'm just going to start off with something easy, low-hanging fruit. I love the sound of the horses on the horse-drawn streetcar, the clip-clop down Main Street. When I'm walking down Main Street and I can hear that kind of, in my peripheral, it makes me very happy. It makes me feel like I'm at Disneyland when I hear that.
That's an excellent one because that does sound amazing. In fact, that was the job that I wanted, was to walk with the horses, and I didn't even think of that one. That is an excellent one. Good call. My caveat to this is I wanted to do Disneyland Resort sounds because really what I want to say is the kid, and not to poke fun of David, but when I hear kids' unfiltered joy getting off of Star Tours, only because it's like, but you know what I mean? Like,
oh my God, it's a real spaceship.
Well, the other attractions are more open, right? So that one you're just you're trapped in this little area with them. So that's probably why it sticks out to me the most. But it's not. It is a real spaceship that's like, oh my God, that was so cool, stuff like that. Yeah. But I wanted to keep it Disneyland Resort sounds. So my number 5 is so generic, but it's so awesome, and it's the first thing I do in the morning. It is the Space Mountain jam, the Space Mountain music, the theme going.
Oh yeah.
It's so great. It's so
great.
Awesome. And since I start my day I am at rope drop, which I guess I could have selected that, but I feel like the energy where I really start to feel it is that going up in Space Mountain, and you start to hear that, because that's how our day starts every single weekend. So when I think of it, I'm like, that's awesome. I love that sound. I know I'm off to a good darn day when I'm hearing that at 8:00 in the morning.
That first moment when it segues from the countdown from 1 to the beginning of the music, I mean, it's great. That's the best. It really is the best. I'm glad you said that though, because my number 4 is in Tomorrowland also, but not Space Mountain, although that's a great one. But I love the Tomorrowland loop. Specifically like the Carousel of Progress music, Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. But really just any Tomorrowland music makes me happy. The walking around, even the music that they play, the music versions of Disney songs at Galactic Grill. If you ever paid attention, when you're having a cheeseburger at Galactic Grill, and you can hear, you're like, oh my God, that's You Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story, but it sounds like it's from space,
Yeah.
But really, the Tomorrowland loop is poetry for me.
Yeah, I like. I was thinking about that as well. I stayed away from the loops because it'd be hard for me to.
Yeah.
Take one over another. I love all of you. That's truly the first music I hear is when we're walking, especially when we had to walk the tram path. I remember mentioning this previously. When you hear the Disney music, all of a sudden you're like, okay, we're out of the car and we're walking, and this is gonna be a fun day. My number 4, I didn't want to do 2 ride themes, but I have no choice because in DCA. I have another DCA one, but in DCA, one of my, I don't know why it is, but the Radiator Springs Racers theme music, just that.
Really?
Oh, yeah, just that music of, it's just that relaxing tone that it has. Like, I just love I love that. That whole world and that whole corner is one of the best, and either park is one of the best locations. It's the best. It's just so well themed, and it's so well away from everything. It's just a fun little spot over there. So I love that theme, and I don't know how to do it, but you know what I'm talking about? That
yeah. Well, you talking about the waterfall music, or
yes.
Yeah, that for me that's a love-hate for me, because that's instant copyright strike if that ever shows up in my video.
Oh, yeah,
that specific music is a copyright strike. Boom.
Yeah, it's the calm before the storm. It's like like right when you get your ride vehicle. Yeah. I love it. That's funny though. Number 3.
Yeah, number 3. I'm gonna go with a combination, the Mark Twain, the steam and the paddle wheel. The sounds of the steam coming out of the Mark Twain's steam stacks, and the sound of the paddle wheel going through the water. Those two things. Every time I ride the Mark Twain, I try to take at least one moment to absorb that and to go look at the paddle wheel and absorb the sound of the smoke. To me, it's one of the most peaceful reminders that they have how well they are at putting you in another time and place. Even though you could throw a rock and hit the 5 freeway from that Mark Twain.
Oh, yeah, exactly. The paddle wheel is a good call. I totally agree. Well, both of them are good calls. The Mark Twain is one of my. It's Disneyland to me. I love the Twain, and it always makes my list when there's an opportunity to do it. So I definitely agree with you. My number 3 is, I mentioned DCA previously. I do love the Radiator Springs music. I mentioned this because the Incredicoaster, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
That to me is DCA, and I don't know how else to say it. That is the signature sound for DCA to me, and there's nothing else I can say. It just really is.
Interesting. I'm
what is
this close to agreeing with my number 2. There is something better than the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My number 2 is just the sound of screaming. You sit there in Paradise Bay, the World of Color viewing area, the sound of screaming coming from the Incredicoaster and the Pal-Around. That's DCA for me. I could listen to those people having fun. Just thinking about it now, I'm like, it's so great. It's everything that a theme park is supposed to be. Well, an amusement park in this case, because it's more amusement. That area is more amusement than it is theme.
Yeah.
But just the sound of people enjoying themselves on those attractions, they're getting what they asked for. When you hear them screaming, then mission accomplished. They understood the assignment, and it's a reminder to me of everything that DCA is for me.
Yeah, screams are Other people happy is gonna always make the list, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. My number 2, Mark Twain whistle. Mark Twain whistle. The Mark Twain horn, whistle, just everything that you mentioned about it, and I agree. And I got to pull that sucker one time, and I could feel the power, and it was awesome.
Yeah, that's 3 sounds on Mark Twain. There's probably more on that thing as well, but
right. Well, there's the sultry guy.
Oh God, yes, that guy's awesome. I love him.
I know, he's so great. He's not even trying to be sultry, but
I know he's not, is he? When he just says the words, the Mark Twain.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Okay, number 1. This one is the easiest. It's the very first thing I wrote down. It took me 8 seconds to come up with this, and I couldn't think of anything better. But the Your Attention Please, the sound of the Disneyland Railroad coming into station, and the guy in the speaker telling you that the Disneyland Railroad is coming into station. That is, I don't need to hear anything else. I moved. I've heard that 1,000 times in my life, and I still am emotionally react to that sound.
Yeah, I had a feeling the train was going to come, and the train whistle or something to that effect. I also thought you were going to talk about the rope drop, the rope drop speech.
Oh, the speech, yeah. Well, I don't get to do that as much as I used to, so that could be a reason.
Well, plus it changes. Yeah. Every sound at Disneyland's loaded with awesome sounds. My number 1, I couldn't even specify an area because I think Pirates of the Caribbean from start to finish it sounds amazing. It just really does. The crickets when you board that thing and you're going through the crickets and you start going into the ride and the whole emotional or the emotional sounds that you hear throughout that journey, and then the happy songs, the whole thing. I just think Pirates always makes my list for the greatest attraction, or if somebody asks me what are the best or my favorite attraction, Pirates, I just can never not say Pirates. And then now when it comes to like, what's the best sound? You get to sit in that thing for 18 minutes or however long it is and just enjoy the whole entire ride. And it's awesome and it sounds great. And it takes you through the gamut of peaceful crickets and quietness. And there's a war that goes on. There's a party that goes on. There's an auction that goes on. And then, of course, the Pirates theme song. So it's great. I love it.
An underrated sound, something that I try to capture from time to time when I'm on Pirates, is the lift hill at the end when they're taking you back to when you're done, and that the sound of the boat cranking up the hill after seeing Johnny Depp is one of the coolest sounds ever. I love that sound.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. Well, David, that brings us to the end of the show. Any buttons you want to put in it?
I have no buttons. No, I can't think. I think we covered everything, man. We talked about a lot back there.
Yeah, we did. We talked about a lot, and he didn't give us a lot to talk about, so we got to speculate on everything. We're going to talk about all the things he mentioned, and all the things that he didn't mention that we wish he mentioned. So next week, well, I don't know. Next week, I guess maybe we'll talk about what we think we'll hear. Nah, that's boring. I don't know. We'll have to.
Well, there's the earnings call. I mean, depending on what happens with the earnings call, because usually they drop a little news on those earnings calls too, so we can cover that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But that's Tuesday. The earnings
that's right.
The earnings call's on Wednesday, and we're not going to know anything until. So I'm sure we'll circle back. After that. So anyway, we'll have something fun to talk about because there's always something fun to talk about. But until then.
Yeah, fresh baked.